What an awesome job last night by the Duke men's basketball team picking up the win on the road at Castle Coliseum. That place has been so hard to play at over the years. Not the case last night. A big-time Duke win.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is J.J. Jackson. It is Tuesday, January 30th, 2024, and Duke basketball is victorious after their win over Virginia Tech last night. Big-time performance for Duke, and we break it down all throughout today's episode here of Locked On Blue Devils. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review, as your support means so much to us over there. Watch the show each and every day on YouTube. Hit the like video on this video, thumbs up, share it with your friends, hit the subscribe button to our channel, and continue supporting us here at Locked On Blue Devils. Thank you so much for being an everydayer and making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen or first watch each and every day. All right, without further ado, let's bring him on. And joining me on today's show to recap the win is none other than our good pal Josh Cox, who's back with us each and every week. And man, what a win it was last night for Duke.
Yeah, it really was. You mentioned the struggle that it's been at Castle Coliseum. Duke came out last night and just played out overall just a top beginning to end great game. Right around halftime there, made me a little bit nervous. You know, Duke had an 11-point lead, and then they cut it to 3. But anyway, they came out with a win. We got a lot of guys to talk about. A lot of guys played really well, and Duke ended up kind of getting that monkey off their back. I think they were 1-5 in the last 6 there at Virginia Tech, and so got the win and finished out January strong.
Yeah, no doubt about that. One of the best winning percentages that Duke has had in a month since February 2022. Good stuff there from Duke. Who stood out?
Yeah, not only that, real quick, not only 7-1 in January, but 11-1 in the last 12 games. So, I mean, that's pretty awesome from that Georgia Tech loss, 11-1. So, and that one loss was that weird Pitt game that we've talked about. So, yeah. But who stood out? I mean, several guys stood out. Obviously, Ryan Young. I actually want to start there.
Yeah, please.
The guy that, depending on, who you talk to and what's going on in the game, Duke Twitter either loves him or, wishes he never, came off the bench and all that. But last night, he played well defensively, had a block that was pretty incredible, played really well offensively, was under control, didn't get the travel calls that sometimes he gets, had the dunk from off of the Tyrese Proctor assist. That's his. They were going back and forth. It's his second dunk on the season, and so he actually has one more than Proctor right now. So they're going back and forth on that. But yeah, Ryan Young played an incredibly solid game with Filipowski in a little bit of foul trouble on the road, needing that veteran presence. He did that, and then we'll talk about more, but your thoughts as well. But then speaking of veteran presence, you got Jeremy Roach out there, not at 100%. Obviously hobbled a little bit, doesn't quite have that explosiveness that he typically has, and still winds up with 16 points and hits 4 3-pointers. So
yeah, Roach,
the old guys, man.
The game.
Shout out to the old guys.
Came off the bench, and Jeremy Roach had a big time performance. We'll look at the box score a little bit more for the Duke team in just a moment, coming up in segment number 2. But talking about the start to the game, a bit of a slow start, Josh, for the Duke basketball team. Virginia Tech gets out to like a 4-0 lead, and Duke's a little slow, turning the ball over a little bit more than they normally do in these games. But fortunately, they were able to kind of hold their hats on the defensive end of the floor and make a big impact there to keep them around early and not create so much separation against your opponent.
Yeah, listen, these guys understand how difficult that place is to play. The fans show up anytime Duke's in town. it's the lighting seems to be weird there. Like there's just a lot of stuff going on, and so you may expect to even come out a little bit slow, and then you add to it that as well as he does some things, Mark Mitchell had 6 turnovers in the first half. That just wasn't ideal. There was a time in the first half where Duke came down on 3 straight possessions and turned the ball over, 3 straight times, and so they were kind of shooting themselves in the foot there. But as you said, JJ, they didn't allow themselves to get behind a crazy amount. They didn't they get that look sometimes, like when they were down 9-0 to Pitt at home. You could just kind of see it, like this is not going to be their night. I never felt that way last night. I felt like they were always going to come back and going to get going to exert the energy that they needed to and get back in front, and they did that. So like you said, started slow, turned the ball over some, but corrected it. And speaking of Mark Mitchell, to give him his due there, I don't believe he had a turnover in the second half. So he had 6 in the first half. I don't believe he had any more. So,
yeah, really able to clean it up there in that second half of play. I'm thinking in particular in that first half, as Duke's kind of making that little bit of a comeback at the start, you're waiting for that under 16 timeout to be called, and it goes forever and ever until the first whistle actually takes place. It was at 12:38. So then you had one of those weird segments of basketball where, of course, the basketball gods had to turn that around. And the moment it goes underneath 12, you get that media timeout coming. So Duke had that extended period out there on the floor, took advantage of it, no whistles, and really good basketball to get back into it. And I think that kind of changed the course of everything and set the tone the rest of the way.
Yeah, that was interesting. When it got to halftime, I think the game had been going like 37, actual minutes or something like that. I mean, that's just extremely fast first half. It is kind of weird, I know the TV has to do what they have to do, but yeah, to get those back-to-back timeouts and the full timeouts too, the back-to-back full media timeouts, was interesting there. But I'm sure those guys could use the 6.5, 7 minutes worth of breather there after going so hard. But yeah, you're right. That stretch there for Duke was very important. You had the steady kind of hand of Roach, like you said, coming off the bench and kind of being present during that time. Caleb Foster, we'd be remiss to not mention the start that he had to kind of get Duke, where they needed to be after Duke started slow. And so, I don't wish, but I mean, every game we always have some negatives to talk about, and we'll probably have a couple of things to say. But man, it's really hard to find some in this game because everybody kind of did what they needed to do. 4 guys in double figures, all those types of things.
Yeah, no, you look at the game in particular, that first media timeout, again, 12 and a half minutes left to go. It's 14-13 at the time, and it was only Filipowski and Foster who had scored for Duke. Caleb had 8, Kyle Filipowski had 6, so they were the guys early.
Yeah, they were. Absolutely. And I do love the fact that Duke wanted to establish Filipowski and get him the ball. Obviously, he was coming off a game where he struggled, and he didn't have the greatest game tonight. I think he ended up with 14 points or whatever he ended up with. But they did go to him early, and they made sure that Virginia Tech knew that, like, here's our guy, and you're going to have to guard him. You're going to have to take care of him all night. And, so that was good for him. And like I said, Caleb Foster, one of those 4 guards is going to show up and at different times, and that was Foster's time.
Yeah, big game last night for Duke basketball, 10-point win over Virginia Tech, now 11-1 in their last 12. This is fun to watch this time of year. Let's keep talking about it after this timeout here on the program. Lockdown Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We're getting ready for the Super Bowl. How about you? And you got to make FanDuel a part of that. It's America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about securing the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. So go and check it out. Super Bowl 58, Chiefs and 49ers. So many bets that you can find, like who scores a touchdown, how many total points will be scored, and so much more. New customers, join today and get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet or more wins. Just join FanDuel.com/lockedon to get signed up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon for you to get signed up. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL and Locked On. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, JJ Jackson alongside my pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast. He's got work with Duke Report on the basketball side of things. Also a lot of good stuff coming with Durham Devils Club. Tell us a little bit about everything you got on your plate right now, Josh.
Yeah, with basketball season in full swing, doing some work with Freddie Hodges and Duke Report. I'll be at the UNC game in Chapel Hill this Saturday night. So you can follow at Duke Report to kind of keep up with what we do there. We try to have fun with that. But then, my main thing is Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast. We cover Duke football and on a deep level. And then Durham Devils Club is the NIL collective right now for Duke football and for other sports at Duke. And so DurhamDevilsClub.com. If you want to be involved in that, there's some really cool perks with that. But Duke signing these players, bringing in some guys from the portal, keeping that locker room intact for football, and the Durham Devils Club has a ton to do with that. And so that's kind of where my hands are. You can follow me personally at Joshua Cox there on the screen. And so have a lot of fun covering Duke sports.
So here we are talking about the game last night, and you're worried about a Monday turnaround with how quick it is. Not the case at all for Duke. And now the advantage is you've got a lot of extra days here to prepare for North Carolina this weekend. I like it after a win. This is a good feeling.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, you don't want, like you said, you don't want the 2-day turnaround from Saturday to Monday, but then to know that you have extended period of time, to prepare for the matchup. I mean, that's going to be a tough game. I'm sure you're going to talk about it throughout the rest of this week with some guys. But I mean, Carolina's playing as good a basketball as anybody in the country, in my opinion. RJ Davis is, listen, Jeremy Roach is having an incredible senior season. But people aren't talking about Jeremy Roach, and honestly, rightfully so, because of how good of a season RJ Davis is having there in Chapel Hill. And as much as I hate to, admit that, it's just the truth. So it's going to be a good one. Going to be a good one Saturday.
So we're worried, because when you're watching a game, are you thinking ahead to North Carolina and how big that game is? Not the case at all for Duke. Let's take a look at some of the numbers from last night's game. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see the box score here. We'll try and shout out some numbers that we like. What do you see, Josh?
Well, the first one to me is rebounding. I mean, Duke out rebounds, Virginia Tech. Let me get the exact number, 38-20 on the boards. And, let's face it. I mean, that would not be anything we would expect, heading into the season. We really felt like, rim protection and then rebounding would be difficult. But you got Jared McCain. This is his third game this season with double-digit rebounds. He almost had a double-double, and ironically, he missed it on the points. Not on the rebounds. And so
wouldn't have guessed that. Yeah,
you got to give him credit. Then you had Mitchell and Filipowski both with 8 rebounds apiece. Young was 6. And so, I mean, I think that when you win the battle on the boards, that's a telltale sign. And then, okay, let's put it this way. You can lose the turnover battle if you win the rebound battle by that much, right? So Duke loses the turnover battle, but they win the rebounding battle almost at a double rate. And so that's the first thing that sticks out to me.
Yeah. And then we start looking at some shooting numbers in particular, and you're worried about Duke's shooting splits on the road. Last night, 53% from 3. That was a big difference.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you can shoot 53% from 3, I'll pick Duke in every game from here the rest of the year. I mean, I was following some of the guys, on Twitter, some different guys, Duke talking heads, and I saw one that said, I believe we can now say that this is an elite shooting team. This is an incredibly good 3-point shooting basketball team. Jeremy Roach he seems to be so under control, and that's different, in my opinion, than his first 3 seasons. Felt like there's some ill-advised 3-point shots. He doesn't take him this time unless it's into the shot clock. Sometimes you got to get a shot up. But Jeremy Roach is so consistent. Jared McCain, I've mentioned it before. I don't know if my man crush on Jared McCain has come through on this podcast as much, but that young man, number one, the joy he plays with is incredible. Secondly, his shot is beautiful.
Yes,
if you have a son or daughter who is in middle school or in that kind of developmental stage of basketball, and you want to show them someone watch this person play and shoot. That's the way you need to play and shoot. It's Jared McCain, no question about it. And so, and then Foster and and whatnot, shooting better than what I thought he was going to shoot. And then Proctor. Now, Proctor's a little bit of a, he's a little bit feast or famine with his shots. And I think that's more on shot selection than anything else. But yeah, and then you got Filipowski. I mean, you got Flip can go out there and hit him. And we won't talk about Mark Mitchell, but Mark Mitchell at least has hit a few over the last couple games. And anyway, Duke can flat out shoot the basketball, JJ. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Which we love. We've wanted something like this for quite some time, and McCain's been one of the guys the entire season. But here you've got proof. Last night, McCain was 1 of 6 from 3. Percentage-wise, the worst out of the guys who took more than 1 3-point shot. Again, only 1 attempt for Filipowski, which is a little abnormal in the game, but he did not make that. 1 of 6 for McCain, however, is lower than what he's normally shooting out there on the floor. And yet here we are with a good game from Foster, knocking down both of his attempts. Proctor is really shooting it well over the last 6 or 7 games. And again, Jeremy Roach, my goodness, 4 of 5 from 3. Some of these Jeremy Roach shooting displays that we've seen this year is unbelievable.
And JJ, can you believe that in the offseason, when Jeremy Roach said he was coming back to Duke, that some dude named Josh Cox, who happens to be here with you today on this podcast, just made the statement, I hope Jeremy is willing to take a back seat to some of these guys coming in. And, man, was I absolutely wrong. My man has been so important and so vital to this team. He's having an incredible season. And I just hope that his foot can get to 100% and that he doesn't have to play the rest of the season at 80% and not 100%. That's all I can say.
We're always looking at the percentages of assists to made shots, and it's another good one last night for Duke. 19 out of 31. They were 50% or a little bit fewer than 50% in their win at Louisville a week ago. Proctor had a couple of more isolation opportunities and that sort of thing in that game. But the ball movement for Duke was great.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, they on the road. Listen, on the road in a environment like that, selfish basketball on the offensive end is not going to do it. You're not going to ISO this game and win. It's just not going to happen. And so, ball movement was key. Guys, no one had a crazy amount of assists. Obviously, Proctor leading the way there, but Duke shared the basketball. I don't have the numbers right in front of me of how many of their field goal attempts were assisted on. Let me see if that actually came. So 19 out of 31, it looks like. 19 out of 31, 19 out of maybe 40.
Yeah, 19 out of 31. Yep.
19 out of 31 were assisted on. I'll take that ratio. Sorry, I was trying to look at that in real time there.
Smaller on our screen than for folks watching.
Exactly. I'm not that old, but it is small on our screen. But yeah, that's a great ratio. And listen, this team is unselfish. It's a thing of beauty, JJ. It's vintage Duke basketball. When a ball gets maybe skipped and the defender comes over too quickly and then the ball skips back and they make that one extra pass to the guy that's wide open and they hit the shot. So this team does that often, and we shouldn't take that for granted because there are some Duke teams that have had guys on it that play hero ball, and it's just not been that case.
It's a really big win for Duke basketball as they defeat Virginia Tech by 10. And now we can move forward a little bit. Now we can talk about this big game coming up on Saturday against North Carolina with Josh Cox. We'll get a few more thoughts after this final timeout here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. We're back in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Jace Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we talk for just a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. This is quite scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than not having access to some of those life-saving medications that are needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among others. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code Locked On to get $20 off your order. Once again, jacemedical.com, promo code Locked On, LOCKEDON, for $20 off your order. Jace Medical, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils alongside my pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast and the Duke Report. All right, big one Saturday. Duke and North Carolina moving forward in the program here, in the season, in the schedule that's on hand for Duke. It's now the time of year where you're going to see the last 100 meetings between these two schools. A little bit more separation in Duke's favor because of the last few years. Duke's won 52 out of the last 100, but a big time test coming up again on the road in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, that 100 one is the one that's going around. Did see one, I believe it was from a UNC guy, but it was the last 48 meetings is 24-24. And the points per game is like 78 to 78.6. So, I mean, if there's any question, JJ, and I know if you're listening or watching this podcast, you know this is the truth. But like anybody that wants to say that there's any rivalry, especially in college basketball, that even comes close to Duke and UNC, they're absolutely out of their minds. This is another top 10 matchup. Number 3, UNC. Number 7, Duke. I thought that was funny. I saw a Kentucky guy say, how is Duke ranked number 7 this week? And my response was, when you win 11 out of your last 12 games and you beat solid teams on the road in ACC, that's what happens. You continue to move up you move up the rankings, right? That's what happens. But this is going to be a great game, JJ. All due respect to our friends over in Chapel Hill. They are playing incredible basketball. They have yet to lose a conference game. They have veteran leadership, not only with, Armando Bacot in his, 7th season or whatever he's in. They have RJ Davis, and then bringing in a guy like Harrison Ingram. I mean, that's Harrison Ingram does things for UNC that helps them win basketball games that, it's not that he's not easily replaceable. So, I'm not here to brag on them. I'm just saying that they are solid. This is going to be a vintage Duke UNC game, and I can't wait. I'm going to be there in person for the first time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch when you look at both of these teams and what to expect. North Carolina, by the way, does play later tonight. So they've got a Tuesday night game on the road in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. Duke saw a tough one there earlier in the year. So we'll see if the Tar Heels are caught looking ahead a little bit to the Duke game on Saturday, or if they're able to take care of business later tonight. They got Cormac Ryan, also a transfer from Notre Dame, who's been one of their top shooters from the outside. But as Brendan Marks of The Athletic and so many others continue to point out when they join this show and just online out there, North Carolina, the number 1 defense in college basketball, the top defense in the land in college basketball. When you take a look at Duke basketball in particular, when you slow it down into a half-court game, Duke basketball is one of the best offenses in the entire country. On the court immediately after the game last night, Tyrese Proctor mentioned the fact that, we know we're one of the best offenses in the half court. That's what we want to do, get stops on the defensive end so we can dictate pace. I think that's a little bit of a twist than what we've seen in years past, Josh, because I think there have been Duke teams that's like, dude, let's get out and run. We're really athletic. Let's find ways to beat you back down the floor. But it's kind of wild that Duke really doesn't mind slowing down. And I've just always been accustomed to watching the game and wanting to push the tempo and that sort of thing. So here's the big test. The top defense against this really great half-court offense. It's going to be fun to watch.
Well, that's the good thing about Duke's offense as well, is that they can get out and run if they need to. Obviously, the guard play is elite. But you're right. They play so well in that half court. And I mean, listen, first of all, Tyrese Proctor talking after the game, wasn't, in the half court, I believe it was in the half court scenario where he put my man Couture on ice skates last night. So I just want to shout him out there. But honestly, you got to give credit to Hubert Davis for, and I'm not, this is not taking pot shot at Carolina, but under Roy Williams, I mean, you never would have said that Carolina's defense is just going to be elite under Roy Williams. It just wasn't his style of play. And Hubert Davis has really brought that in. And, you got to give him credit. But, yeah, like you said, Duke could score in the half court. Now, one of the one of, I believe, the keys to this game is going to be Kyle Filipowski. And I guess the best way of saying it, does Kyle let the game come to him, or does he try to go out and force and dictate? And I believe if he tries to go out, force and dictate, Duke struggles. The ball in the half court can kind of get lost in the black hole of Kyle Filipowski. If he comes out and he is committed to finding his teammates, to finding the open man, to taking the shots when they're there, I think it bodes well for Duke. Armando Bacot is going to have to guard either Kyle Filipowski or Mark Mitchell. I'm assuming he'll guard Mark Mitchell so that he can maybe stay in the lane a little bit more. That's another thing I would keep my eye out for, JJ. Does Mark have the confidence to knock down a three early in the game and make that UNC defender come out and guard him? So there's a couple of small things there, but how does Filipowski work within the offense early on? And then can Mark Mitchell draw his defender, whoever it is, make his defender come out and play him on the perimeter? I think those are two big keys for Duke.
And we've seen a trend over the last couple of games that Filipowski's been in foul trouble, and so he's been having to go to the bench and not play as much out there on the floor. You're right. There are moments where it feels like he can force it just a little bit, but I tell you what, I think Duke wants him out on the floor rather than hoping that you can get a performance like you had last night out of Ryan Young, right? So I think that's really, really important against a team like North Carolina, that Filipowski can stay out of foul trouble.
Yeah, and I mean that's that on the other end. That's the struggle, right? I mean, he's going to be guarding Armando Bacot, and we know this has not been. I mean, Bacot is he's solid and he's having a solid season, but UNC is not focusing the offense around.
They decided not to feature him, and he's gotten better. He's
exactly
back to focusing just on offensive rebounds and putbacks and what he's meant to do.
Right, and so that's going to be an interesting matchup on that end of the court. Listen, anytime Duke plays a team that's got a super talented big, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Filipowski definitely defends on the perimeter better than he defends down on the block. And so, I mean, we'll see. Duke probably is going to have to get creative on defense a little bit on Saturday night. And once again, that's on John Shire and Jay Lucas to figure out the UNC scheme and how to work against it.
Shire has yet to lose to UNC as the Duke basketball coach, and we want to see that trend continue. We're big Shire fans on this program, obviously, and he's just got so much composure. It always looks like, and a little bit of swagger to him well. Like, I'm excited for the John Shire moments that we're getting yet again in this historic rivalry. It was built on Coach K versus Dean Smith, Coach K versus Roy Williams. Let's get some more John Shire big moments coaching in this rivalry.
I mean, and I haven't spoken to you since the Saturday game, but he also has just that swag, man. He walked out with a suit on, and he had the Jordan 1s with the suit, man. Like, Shire definitely, he's got that. I would love to see.
Your head coach is not doing that.
Right, exactly.
Other teams out there.
Exactly. I would actually love to see, and nothing inappropriate or over the top, but I would love to see something, between Shire and Davis, or between the teams, that would kind of, I love the smack talking. Like, something needs, I feel like I'd love to see something kind of reignite that rivalry passion. And I don't want anyone to get hurt. I don't want anything inappropriate to happen. But I want something to happen, whether it's coaches jawing at each other or whatever it is. I want something to happen to where this turns back into like that bitter rivalry that I believe all of us grew up, with the hard fouls and the smack talk and the big shots, Carolina coming into Cameron for 4 years with Tyler Hansbrough and beating the crap out of Duke. And then Duke going over to Cameron and the Austin Rivers shot and was it the Chris Duhon layup and all those things. Like, anyway, and the window more put back. Can't forget that. So I'm ready for this rivalry to kind of get back a little more cutthroat, and maybe it'll happen Saturday night.
Yeah, let's have some big moments. That's for sure. Josh, you're the best. Looking forward to seeing Saturday's game. Glad Duke got a win last night, and we'll do this again next week. Okay.
Have a great one, JJ. We'll see you, man.
All right, that's Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast and the Duke Report. Give him a follow at Joshua Cox. He's heading to the Dean Smith Center this upcoming weekend for a big one. That's going to do it for our show here today. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.